And welcome to Brittany in France. I think this place is called Ploumanac'h. It looks fabulous and I can't wait to get going.
This area is one of those that when you look it up on the internet you just think, wow, that looks really interesting, I've got to go there. In fact, the main reason why I was here was due to one photo that I saw where the sun was setting, the rocks were glowing pink, and it was nothing like I got today, but I still had to go, rude not to. I'm Louise Welcome, and there's nothing more than I like than massive rocks and the sea. Today I'm combining this location with another cracker in the north of Brittany, Scaff, and I must confess, I'm really quite pleased with some of today's images.
I spent the last 10 minutes trying to find the optimum height for shooting this location. I thought it might be right down in front of that water, but I'm not so sure because those boulders are pretty dominant. Higher tide is really what I need. Not Sunday, high tide, over to the left. Boom!
Brittany is the most northwest area of France, and my two areas are 45 minutes drive apart.
I need to show you around because actually a lot of this looks a bit Disney-esque. Seriously, transfer this rock to a Disney canyon ride and you kind of would presume it's amazing. It looks fake though. I'm actually scouting in infrared. Sometimes it just makes it easier to take the colour out of a scene so you can see patterns and textures a little bit more. The textures in these rocks are lovely, but they're not quite leading to where I want them to be. They're leading beautifully up to this section of rock, but ideally I'd like it to lead out to the one in the background.
I'm scouting in infrared because I wanted to focus on rock textures. The foreground rock here is a little bit too dominant, although the pattern does lead into that background, which I quite like. Perhaps a different crop of 4x5 might be better. Now I'm gutted that I didn't go back to the van to get my kit out of the car to come and shoot this properly. I really like the foreground rocks, and every time I came back the tide was just wrong. Now there's something about this that I quite like, but it looks terrible in colour. Talking of terrible, it's cluttered, it's confusing, and I needed a higher tide. Luckily I was there approaching the blue moon time.
Right, I have 3 sleeps here and this place is a lot better than I was anticipating. So the day after tomorrow in the evening, I think we're going to go 45 minutes east and hopefully hit a place called Scaff. Look at my French accent there. And that's a rock formation in the sea. I believe you need a high tide, so I'm going to stick with that. On a Wednesday morning, when it is a mega high tide, all my eggs in one basket, I'm going to come back to this location and try and get some cracking shots of the lighthouse.
So in order that I didn't miss out on my one egg in the basket chance, I decided it was really important that I scouted as much as possible on this occasion.
Problem is, everything looks really fascinating in infrared. Doesn't necessarily make it a good subject though.
Crikey, cluttered, messy and generally grim. Yuck. I returned a day later because I wanted to have a look at exactly the effect the low tide had, and it was far too chaotic, but what I did have the opportunity to do was to check through photo pills where the sun was going to rise the day after. One chance, I didn't want to mess it up.
This place is quite extraordinary. I'm gonna have some fun here.
And indeed I did the next morning, but meanwhile...
About 45 minutes east from Ploumanac'h we have Scaff. So sorry about the accent there. And this is an area where you have sea stacks of various sizes and shapes. Now I've clearly got a good couple of hours before that lovely high tide comes and surrounds these. So I think I'll have a bit of a scout, cup of coffee, might even have a kip. Then I'll come back and have a play and see what I can get with my camera. I've got to be honest with you, I have virtually no movement in the water. This seems to be a common theme with my photography at the moment. And one of the things I love is to get a nice bit of movement, but it's not going to happen. A little bit precarious. I'm not going to film much simply because I need to keep an eye on this tide. I'm being surrounded, but I've got a rock path out of it. Incoming. Silly woman, but I couldn't get an outgoing. Currently big stopper, 25 seconds. Not nervous at all. ISO 160, giving it a go. Oh my God! Now, before anyone says anything in the comments, I'm very aware I needed to have a good escape plan, and I promise you I had one, and I was checking every 10 to 15 seconds because you've got to trust your gut instinct, otherwise you're likely to have something really not good happen to you. Where I am right now, I actually have a physical barrier of quite a few large rocks in front of me. Getting an okay composition. I preferred my last one, but safety first and all that. I'm using my big stopper at the moment to flatten everything out, but then I want to get a bit of movement, so my little stopper's going to come in very handy. This is the kind of stuff I like. Normally I'd like to be up to my knees in it, but not with this tide. That's going to be bonkers. I've got my little stopper on, and I've got anything from 0.4 to 1.5 seconds. 1.5s are giving much more pleasing results, but I'm going to be honest with you, it's not actually mad enough in the water to give results that you really would like to have with a little stopper. The movement is just a bit there, so I might have to go back to the 10 stop. How tedious. Having dropped the ISO because the light's fading quite fast at the moment. I confess that the algae or whatever it is that has grown over these rocks looks really good when contrasting with the sea colour. I know it's the same pink granite that I'm going to be shooting tomorrow, but that yellowness really does look quite special. I take it that you're quite liking this. Now we've just got a nice little lull. High tide has reached, and because the tide is going out a little bit now, it means that we don't have any wave movement really. It's just kind of coming up and going down. Now it's just time to sort of sit there and take it in really. I confess to being a little excited about a couple of those shots. I think I might have got a couple of juicy bangers. Now, tomorrow has to be equally good. Morning. Now this is more like it. I've got my high tide, not much colour in the sky, but a bit to work with, and a bit of rough water. Well, now it's just a matter of waiting and seeing how the light changes stuff. Forgive the fact I look a little bit like I've been dragged out of the hedge backwards. We have got about an hour and a half before we need to head off to the port, so it's just a matter of catching what we can. It's that lovely glow that's really catching my attention at the moment. We're not actually appreciating the pink granite in this particular light.
But just look at that lovely glow on that water. I was having to fiddle around with my polarisation to make sure that I got maximum glow reflected in the shots I was taking.
Strange observation. I was expecting this to be the place that gave me the buzz, because this is the reason why I came to this area. But yesterday at Scaff, genuinely that was a surprise. I think therefore that gave me much more of a buzz than this place did. I think perhaps I just need to manage my expectations a little bit better than I have done in the last few days. So it's a dash back to my van, a sensible drive to the ferry port, back over to the UK, and therefore back to work. Oh, it's always a shame when life gets in the way of what you love. And it remains for me to say a huge thank you for joining me today. Wherever I am, whatever I'm doing next time, I hope you'll join me. Take care.